And then Stephen Miller's podcaster wife, Katie Miller, jumps in. Adam Gentleson says, Stephen Miller sending his wannabe podcaster wife to do damage control is the most beta shit I've ever seen. This video is brought to you by Incogni. All right, this is beyond parody. Stephen Miller seems to be sending his podcaster wife out to do damage control after everyone pointed fingers back at him for the botched response, the cover-up of Alex Preddy's execution. Now, of course, Stephen Miller is the man on screen now. I apologize for the jump scare of his face, but he has been leading the most extremist immigration policy and a lot of the social policy within the Trump administration, not only this time, but last term as well. This term, Donald Trump has ceded much of his control on immigration to Stephen Miller, and Stephen Miller has taken advantage of it well. After the execution of Renee Good, Trump administration officials came out and covered it up by calling her a, quote, domestic terrorist. A lot of conservatives bit onto that and believed it. But then a few weeks later, Alex Preddy was also assassinated. This video was so disturbing that the vast majority of Americans understand this was just a straight-up state murder. Well, Stephen Miller continued to double down and said things like he's a domestic terrorist, even calling Alex Preddy an assassin. After the Trump administration's response resulted in not just protests, not just massive uproar, but a breakthrough to sports games across the country, then certain CEOs across the country, then people across the country speaking out en masse, Republican gubernatorial candidates for the governor dropping out of a race saying it's because of ICE and DHS. Then the government shutdown in 3 days that will likely occur if Democrats are able to block ICE funding and if Republicans don't compromise. Republicans are further trying to fund DHS and ICE, and Democrats are saying, no, we're not going to fund it. So, with all of this context, Kristi Noem is under a lot of pressure, and she begins pointing fingers over at Stephen Miller. Reporting from multiple sources is that the entire response to the Preddy death, right down to the specific word choice, came directly from Stephen Miller. Truly one of the most disgusting and despicable human beings to ever walk the earth, says Adam Mockler. Then Axios confirms Kristi Noem's language that Alex Preddy wanted to massacre federal agents came from Stephen Miller. As Harry Sisson points out, the White House is in full-blown panic mode right now. Kristi Noem is throwing Stephen Miller under the bus. Miller is throwing Greg Bovino under the bus. Republican senators are calling for Noem to be fired, and it's a mess. And Harry Sisson is enjoying every single second of it. By the way, a huge thank you to all of you for being here with me while we continue to report the news every day. If you appreciate the work of independent media, make sure you subscribe to the channel below, and just know I appreciate you guys a lot. So Stephen Miller, right after Alex Preddy was assassinated, called him an assassin trying to murder federal agents. JD Vance then reposted it. A lot of people are arguing Alex Preddy's family should sue Stephen Miller. This is when the cover-up begins to be in play. Sorry again for the jump scare, but Katie Miller is then on Twitter desperately trying to spin a narrative. She points out that an OpenAI executive, Caitlin Kalinowski, tweeted this out. Let's read the tweet from the OpenAI executive. It says, First Amendment, freedom of speech, assembly, and protest. Second Amendment, right to bear arms. Fourth Amendment, protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. Fifth Amendment, due process of law. 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. These are just normal facts. And Katie Miller tries to out the OpenAI exec as if this is some radical leftist ideology. Dude, this is the Constitution of the United States. But it gets even worse. After this Axios article came out yesterday about Kristi Noem blaming the language on Stephen Miller, Katie Miller then comes out. This is her Twitter post. Katie Miller posts a screenshot of an Axios article to try to defend her husband, Stephen Miller. In this screenshot, it says, between the lines, Miller said the Minnesota operation didn't follow the guidelines established by the White House in the aftermath of the January 7th shooting of another Minneapolis demonstrator, Renee Good. So Stephen Miller comes out after pioneering the extremist rhetoric on Trump's behalf with Trump's approval. Trump is the one who allowed him and created the permission structure for him to do this. So it's all of their faults. But Stephen Miller gives the exact wording of domestic terrorist, pioneers this awful, awful cover-up, and then comes out and says the operation didn't follow the guidelines established by the White House. There are even reports that on a daily basis, Stephen Miller calls certain ICE squads across the country, talks to the leader, and will berate and yell at them if they aren't using overly reckless force to meet his quota of 3,000 a day. He's very, very serious about deporting 3,000 people a day, and due to that, we see the most reckless operations. So Katie Miller posts, quote, specifically, Miller said, the squads of CBP agents were supposed to be divided between officers engaged in the arrests of specifically targeted criminal aliens and other officers in charge of the crowd. There is no shot Katie Miller is posting this. Adam Gentleson responds, Stephen Miller sending his wannabe podcaster wife out to do damage control is the most beta shit I've ever seen. MeidasTouch points out, it's very notable that Stephen Miller's wife is going out of her way to highlight these comments. Stephen Miller smeared Alex Preddy, calling him a, quote, domestic terrorist and assassin to justify his murder. Now Katie Miller and her husband are trying to throw others under the bus. Again, going back to Harry Sisson's post, Kristi Noem throws Stephen Miller under the bus. Then Donald Trump throws Greg Bovino under the bus by demoting him. Then Tom Homan is sent to replace both of them. Now Katie Miller has to get involved. Every single time she gets involved in anything, it's the most cringe thing imaginable. I'm sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. It's just so bad. Here is Senator Thom Tillis calling both Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller incompetent, saying they need to go and lose their jobs.
To then think that we can move on before this has been adjudicated.
Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. No, she's. I've tried to maintain confidence, but look, I've done and we'll be sharing this information. We've done a Trump 1, Trump 2 comparison of disaster relief. There's no comparison whatsoever. Trump 1 was right on with disaster recovery. You think about Matthew and Florence, and this one, she's not even handling the other part of her job. I mean, at one point she thought FEMA should be eliminated. To give you an idea of how incompetent I think she is, she actually thought FEMA should be eliminated. And when she had a FEMA director said he didn't think that was a good idea, she fired him within 24 hours. Now she understands that that is an important part of her job. These are like amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes going into somebody who's a secretary in a cabinet level position. It's unacceptable.
Does she need to step down? Does she need to?
Stephen Miller is in the same boat. This guy, after doing the stupid comments he made about Greenland getting the president in a difficult circumstance, is one of the people that came out publicly and said that this guy was a terrorist before he had even talked with anybody on the ground, and that's clearly not the case now. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence.
Why?
This guy is genuinely fed up. A Republican Senator, Thom Tillis, is genuinely fed up, and he put that really well. That's a really good perspective on, number one, why Kristi Noem is a failure. He said they've done the research and found out that the amount of relief compared from Trump 1, Trump's first term, versus Trump's second term has fallen off a cliff. They're not providing the proper relief, and that's Kristi Noem's job. What the hell is she doing? Then he gets asked about Stephen Miller, and he snaps right away. He goes, Stephen Miller is equally as incompetent. This dumbass said this stuff about Greenland, and then he basically botched the entire response with Trump.
I think he should resign. Be fired.
I'm going to leave that up to the president. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
But do you think Noem should step down?
I think Noem needs to decide what. I think if Noem looks at her body of work, I could not be. If I were in her position, I can't think of any point of pride over the last year. She's got to make her own decision, or the president does. But
wow, those are some really scathing words coming from a Republican senator saying that there is nothing Kristi Noem has to be proud of. There is no point of pride over the past year of work. Wow. That is really some mean stuff. I want to end this off with a very important breaking news story that just came out. A pro-Trump ally in Europe spoke of shock at Donald Trump's state of mind at a Mar-a-Lago meeting. This prime minister, the Slovak PM, a Trump ally, told leaders at last week's EU summit he was concerned about the way the U.S. president spoke to him. And this goes all the way back to the Stephen Miller of it all, this sick, deranged, twisted ideology that Stephen Miller and Donald Trump are both pushing. Stephen Miller is actually more extreme than Trump, believe it or not. Trump is not really ideological in the same way. He's just narcissistic. Stephen Miller has this ideological end goal of ethno-nationalism that he uses Trump as a vehicle to achieve. But Slovakia's prime minister told EU leaders at the summit that a meeting with Trump left him shocked. He was concerned about the U.S. president's psychological state, and he's one of the few EU leaders who frequently supports Trump's stance on the Europe's on Europe's weaknesses. So this is somebody who supports Trump on a lot of stuff. He says his psychological state was dangerous. Wild, I'm going to leave it there. And really quickly, you have got to protect yourself when you're going on the internet. Do you ever get a feeling that the internet knows too much about you? Like you're getting targeted ads about something you were just speaking about the day before. That's not paranoia, that is data brokers. There are thousands of companies quietly collecting, trading, and selling your personal info, your address, your phone number, even your interests, so they can then target you with ads and try to take advantage of you. That's why I use Incogni. Incogni automatically reaches out to those data brokers on your behalf and demands that they delete your data. It's like hiring a lawyer for your digital identity or a bodyguard for all of your personal information. When I first tried it, I was shocked that there were hundreds of different brokers that had my information that we needed to remove. Thanks to Incogni's custom removal feature in their unlimited and family unlimited plans, you can literally just paste a link to any website that shows your info, and then one of their privacy agents will reach out on your behalf and advocate for you. They will remove it for you to protect you. Last year, when a big retail chain had a huge data breach, one I never even shopped at, my data was somehow in there. Well, now I am safe online. If you want to take your personal data off the market, click the top link in the description or go to incogni.com/Mockler and use code Mockler for 60% off an annual plan. Again, that is incogni.com/Mockler. Use code Mockler for 60% off. Thank you to Incogni. Thank you to you all.